welcome to the toy shop. I just got promoted to gift maker and I want to show you my top 3 favorite things to make for this winter gift giving season. All of them are easy to make, fast, and don't cost a pretty penny. So without further ado, let's get started. So to start, I'm getting out 3 delicious oranges, and then we're going to chop them up all nice and neat and stick them right in the oven at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 hours, but check on them a lot because I've burnt them so many times and I got in trouble, so don't do that. And of course it started to snow because it's the best time of year for that. Then once the oranges are all done and crisp, they won't be squishy at all and they'll have this beautiful color to them. Then they're ready. So first things first, we're going to line everything up so that I know how many oranges I need for each garland. And then with my trusty string, I'm going to make a little loop. That way I have something to hold in the end of my needle. And then I'm going to sew them through the oranges, being careful not to break it too much. And just doing a big stitch and pulling all the way up to our knot, because we're going to use that to tie on any hooks or any place that we want to hang the wreath. So then I'm going to repeat this step, making sure to go the same way on each orange so they line up all nice and neat. And then, ta-da! We have our garland. So easy, smells amazing. I wanted to eat them like potato chips, but was told I couldn't, but it's still so good. I wanted to make another few garlands just to hang either from a ceiling or a stick, anything that you want. So using the same process, just going under and over the oranges with a needle and thread in the same direction until I have nice little rows of oranges. And then I did them in varying lengths too, just to add some variety and visual appeal. So I'm going to tie off the end with a double knot to make sure the orange doesn't slip off, and that's it. So really, really easy and beautiful, and a nice way if you don't have a bunch of space to make some orange garlands. And ta-da! These are so nice to make for yourself or gift because they last a long time. Next we have some gesso, paintbrushes, trusty paints, some beautimous tiny shrunken trees. I don't know how they make them that small, but it's magical. And deer, you can never have too many deer. And we're going to make a snow globe. So of course we need a lot of glitter, some spray paint, and a jar. This is going to be our globe, so I chose my favorite honey jar. It's a nice size, not too big, not too small. Now this is something that we all learn here at the toy shop on day 1, but there's so much fun to make, I had to share it. So I'm painting the gesso onto my lid, a nice even layer. You could do white paint on top of that, but I don't think it needs it. Then I'm going to make my candy cane stripes. I start out with one big red line and realized I wanted to kind of map everything out first, so then I went in with smaller, lighter strokes to make sure I liked the pattern. And then I finished off with thin, pretty lines. It's okay if they're not perfect because, well, it's handmade. That's part of the fun, right? So after I finish this, I am going to go ahead and seal it with that spray paint. Otherwise, the water is going to dissolve everything, and we don't want that. I'm going to fill it full of my tiny trees and my deer, and then I'm going to fill up my jar with just enough water and probably too much glitter, but you can't really have too much glitter. I mean, who am I kidding? And that's it. So it's really, really easy. It is, basic day 1 elf making, but they're beautiful. They last a long time and they bring joy. So what's not to love? I did finish it off with a nice little piece of string, and that's it. And now for gnomes. These were my favorite toys as a kid. And to start, we just need hot glue, some beautiful peg people, I also have this felt. I couldn't find any more felt in the shop, but this will work. And of course, our snips, and needle and thread, and lastly, some fluff. To start off, I'm going to measure out kind of the base cloak I need for my gnome. You can do this many ways, but this day works best for me for this specific gnome. I wanted to give him kind of a ruffly cloak, so I'm cutting out a slightly too large rectangle. And then I'm going to cut out another piece for his hat. I want this to kind of wrap around and, well, you'll see later, but it's gonna look pretty cool. And then for the hat, I cut out another rectangle, fold it over once to get a square, eventually cut off any excess. Then I'm gonna take my square and cut along the fold to get my nice triangle. This is a good way to make a hat if you want it to be really symmetrical. It is a bit big for him, so I'm going to cut it down a little bit. So I'm going to cut off the excess one last time. And seems good. We're going to add some hair, so if the hat's a bit bigger, that's fine. Then I'm going to start sewing along the back. It doesn't have to be a super tight stitch. It's really more, well, for aesthetics. So I'm going to stitch up using a really basic stitch. And then when I get to the very tippy top of my hat, I'm going to go back down, kind of crossing over to make an X pattern, so that way it looks really pretty. And then once that's done, well, the hat's ready. It's a really simple, fun thing to make, and I think it turned out pretty good. So next thing is to try it on my little gnome, and it's perfect! Yay! So now it's time to sew the little cloak. So I'm going to measure one last time, make sure it's just big enough. And I'm going to start in with a basting stitch. My grandmother taught me this stitch, probably 80 years ago. And it works so well, and it makes ruffles, so it's one of my favorite stitches. I'm just going to go along a little bit away from the edge until I reach the end, and then pull, and ta-da, ruffles! I'm going to measure one last time, and then stitch it on. This stitch can be messy, because we're going to cover it up later. My cloak is a little bit too long, so I'm just going to trim it up and make sure it fits nice and snug. Then I'm going to use my hot glue and dab it all around where I want the hair to be, and then stick on the fluff. Watch your fingers. I don't really have feeling anymore because I've been doing this for years, but you can get burnt. And then the hat's on, and look how good it looks. I added in the beard and a little bell just for some added charm, and I'm doing one last decorative stitch along the front to kind of finish the seam and make him nice and dapper, because we'd always want a dapper gnome. And then he's done and ready to be given as a gift, or go to tea parties, explore forests, or even sit on top of a hot cocoa jar. So many possibilities. And if you wanted to, you could draw in a little face, but I kind of like leaving it up to the imagination. But that's just me. When making gnomes, you always have to make a Grandmaster Wizard gnome. Those are just the rules, I didn't write them. So to start, I'm going to use a different method to make his wizard gnome hat. I'm making a longer, thinner rectangle. I'm going to measure it one last time to make sure I have the length correct. And once I got it, we're just going to do another snip in the right spot. And then I'm going to just cut from end to end. And that's it. Pretty easy to make the shape. Then I just sewed along the back using the same method. This time I didn't cross over, but I think he likes it just fine. Next for our cloak, I'm going to cut my rectangle to shape. This one a bit smaller. I want it to be closer to a cape than a cloak, because wizards don't get cold, we all know that. So next I'm just going to sew the two ends together. Again, you don't have to be too precise with the stitches here, because these will be hidden by a nice fluffy beard. I made it a little bit loose so I could slip it on and off in case, you need a wardrobe change down the road, something like that. So it's nice to have some gnomes with this option as well. And then the same thing, to make sure it's not too long, I'm going to snip off the ends, and that should do quite nicely. Next, I have this beautiful thread made from Starlight. I use it only for the most special occasions, but today is very special. So I'm going to go ahead and use this thread to make little stars all over this Grandmaster Wizard Gnome cape. You can use this pattern, or you could do a more traditional star. Either way, I love doing starbursts. Reminds me of the nice icy winters we have up here in the North Pole. And that's it. Beard's on and he's ready to go. I feel like winter isn't complete without some gnomes, so I hope you like them. I hope you had an awesome time in the toy shop today. I am off to our nightly ball, so I will say good night and goodbye, and until next time, good luck.